Fesgarvar, Indy supporters on this winter afternoon, Tuesday, the 28th of January 2025. I'm here to talk about the Sovereign Scot Indy Petition 2025, which is an initiative of the umbrella Sovereign Scot Independence Movement. This video is a reminder that a link to this Sovereign Scot Indy Petition 2025 will be available very shortly, and this initiative will go towards making a country-wide, dedicated attempt to quantify 2025 support for independence, and is open to the entire Indy movement, not just a tiny poll selection. It is dedicated, Sovereign Scot proactive and unstoppable initiative, moving forward to independence, without delay, despite the facade of colonizer tactic of inserted division, a well-known colonial tactic. Divide and conquer, which cannot be allowed to prevent independence, except unavoidable, temporary effect on a handful of vulnerable Indy folk. Brainwashing is a powerful centuries-old tool, and its effect must not be underestimated. Whilst, in the meantime, Scotland are undemocratically forbidden a second referendum, as well as being forbidden a de facto 2026. Sovereign Scots have as such been forbidden any other way to quantify support for independence, with the last Indy majority having successfully been obtained just over a decade ago, and ignored by those that should have used it as a mandate, because the United Nations and international recognition both state that it is only, generally speaking, that a ref is required. Emphasis is on the phrase, generally speaking, which is in fact key, and is undiscussed, wide basis to prove that other ways are in the previously unrecognised, but stated, loophole. No government may block a vote to independence, yet this is being done. However, they cannot block an online petition. It may not be held under election regulations, but these election regulations seem meaningless, with the Electoral Commission frequently claiming they don't have the power to challenge breaches, such as Westminster broke election law in 2014 before the referendum, deliberately and intentionally lying publicly to produce a false negative result. This was a crime, and yet when repeatedly reported to the Electoral Commission, they repeatedly stated that they had not been given the authority to deal with such a breach, and in fact nobody had been given the authority to deal with the breaking of this election law. They further stated that this very loophole had been brought by them with both the UK government and the Scottish government before the crime happened, and both had neglected to deal with this glaring loophole, even though they were both made aware of it. There is ample justification for a petition, forming a basis for establishing support for independence. It is in the very refusal by both governments to allow either a ref or a de facto or both. The fact is that independence is such a close to 50-50 issue that it should be, in value of its strong support, be a constant factor on a regular basis, as well as issues such as the forbidding of a Scottish public TV broadcaster, the UK government, Westminster, which is in fact, coincidentally, but blatantly England's government. It is also the issue of the dealing with of unionist lies, both by England's unionist parties and politicians and individual unionists, and online unionist trolls, that need firmly dealt with. None of these have been done, and Indy voters have been left in a catch-22, dead-end situation that is against the very principles of the right to self-determination. Another statement that has been repeated again and again is that independence is a matter for the Scottish people. This has again been overlooked and grossly misinterpreted. It has been ignored and remains undiscussed. All and many others are valid considerations for Scotland's own original people and their supporters to legally make the decision to attend to the independence of their own country as repeatedly advised. This Sovereign Scot Indy Petition does obviously depend on the managed reach and distribution, bearing in mind the very real struggle Scotland has with reaching its independence movement members, due to being forbidden its own non-unionist TV broadcaster. Scottish Independence's main outlet is social media, and independence posts are suppressed, without a doubt. Not only suppressed but subjected to unchecked hate speech by unionist trolls and countered by excessive and psychopathic lies by both unionist trolls and England's Unionists Party politicians, who are regularly proven to be lying, and yet no action is taken upon them for what is unlawful behaviour. That is where each individual Sovereign Scot can play a part, and become an active part in Sovereign Scot people power. If each Sovereign Scot helps all those they know to sign the petition, family and friends and those they know to be Indy supporters, far and wide, including those not on social media, those not very computer literate, those in hospital or old age home, or working long hours, or those who are depressed and procrastinate, etc. That goes a long way exponentially in reaching majority of members of the wider Indy movement. Remember, it's essential to respond to the confirmation email or the signature on the petition isn't accepted until that is done. Very important. Printed out copies of the petition may assist in some instances such as independence marches and events and other public efforts. Providing a place to sign in city/town/village and region of Scotland, etc. can also help with efforts, so long as they return promptly to the central point for inclusion. This petition is intended to be helpful to the Sovereign Scot Independence Movement and Sovereign Scots alike, and also intended to be useful to the Scottish Liberation Movement and Salvo, who are currently busy completing the UN application for decolonisation, as it forms useful statistical evidence of current support for independence 2025, even though it's not a ref. It does, however, form part of the, generally speaking, stated by the UN and international acceptance. It is our opinion and intention that the Indy Directive 2025 will also assist both the Scottish Liberation Movement and Salvo's UN application for independence. Sovereign Scot Independence Movement initiated separation due to the many current fatal threats to Scotland, supports the Salvo and SLM decolonisation application divorce. It is the urgency of Scotland independence, due to many threats to Scotland, as well as many delays, that has resulted in these initiatives. See page on our website titled, Threats to Scotland. The urgency of independence cannot be overemphasised. In 2014, over 1.6 million Scots voted yes for independence in an independence referendum that was over 300 years overdue, and in the opinion of many, had a number of irregularities and was not even in the eyes of the UK government, likely deviously so, not an enforceable, nor a constitutional referendum. These another observation in hindsight and not brought to public attention beforehand are unacceptable, and clearly the entire process was not transparent nor prevented from being interfered with. That Sovereign Scots have had to wait patiently for over 10 years for a promised second referendum, though no fault of their own, is frankly unacceptable and intolerable. Unbearable. In 2014 ref, 52% of those born in Scotland voted yes, and this is a factual, proven Indy majority that is in line with Denmark and other countries' internationally accepted voting criteria. According to the UN and international recognition, both say, generally speaking, a ref is required. Emphasis on generally speaking, and that is the key. Generally speaking is a wide. Settler colonisation is a crime and there is an international statute against it. These unlawful occupiers of Scotland cannot prevent independence. Their very existence within Scotland's borders is a hostile action on behalf of their coloniser imperial overlords. Additional background that needs to be circulated within the Sovereign Scot Independence Movement. The truth is that Scottish independence has from the very start been an issue, with majority claiming foul play in the fraudulently obtained false union, including the preceding manipulative events, such as, but not limited to, extensive, prolonged infiltration, etc., and all have been rightfully claimed as foul play. Even those original Scots who went forward to the Westminster Parliament in this so-called union, and were within the Scottish Parliament at the time in 1707, they tried to revoke the so-called union, misuse of the word union, when it became blatantly apparent that the Treaty of Union was being repeatedly broken and was in fact not a union but a hostile annexation and colonisation. The only reason why the so-called union was not revoked was due to the presence of England's infiltrators within the Scottish Parliament, which was in fact an unlawful breach and blatantly unlawful in the first instance. This is more extensively discussed in Professor Alf Baird's book, Dún Hodin, and other historical sources. Further videos will be made on the subject of alleged division and other topics, so keep your eyes peeled. These videos are for the time being only available to watch via the link provided, due to incessant unionist trolls. They will only be seen by Sovereign Scots by sharing the link with care to other Sovereign Scots. This is a different method of circulating Indy info without it being infiltrated, so please take care and share to Sovereign Scot, avoiding unionist trolls and infiltrators. Also take note of the similarity of the words infiltrator and traitor. And so we come to the end of today's video. Cheery, which is short for cheers in Drasta, Scottish Gaelic, which means bye for now,